breakdown. Whoa, whoa, what's up, everybody? Good. Wait, what is it? Lincoln. Wait, good afternoon. It's not morning, my friends. Welcome to No Avail's Mystery Podcast. I'm your host, Joey No Avail Shaddy. We are kicking it today. Lincoln, what's up, man?
What's up, everybody? You guys have a good weekend? Welcome to No Avail Mysteries Podcast, my friends. Chuck, I'm not sure I can't get over this whole thing about, did you hear about this? Oh, God, break it up again. What'd I do? Chuck, man, you guys have a good week. Whoa, what's up? How you doing, man? What's his name? Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome back. Hi, Chuck. Man, what's going on, everybody? I'm glad everybody could join us. It's going to be a good day. Have you guys heard, Chuck, especially you, man, about these skinwalkers? Have you heard about those, what are those called? Cloud walkers? As in, like, yeah, they got these videos of these things walking in the clouds. Have you seen that? I don't even know if that's in the, I don't even think I put that in the topic. There's these things, they call them cloud walkers. These people have this video. It's on our, it's almost on our website. These people got this video, and we got the video. These things to this cloud, you can see them walking through, like, real dull, like, dark shadows that are walking. You can see them through the clouds. And they go, there's one that walks by, and it kind of goes off. And then another one, you see another one. And then it, like, steps up, and it just sort of fades away. But it's all in these, like, cool clouds. If you have not seen these, we'll put them up on our website. That's NAMysteryPodcast.podbean.com. NA is in Nancy Apple. Mystery Podcast. NAMysteryPodcast.podbean.com. Chuck, where you at, man? Where you at? You gotta take this, man. You gotta take this.
Thank you, man. Thank you for the well, I just got to say that was a great, what do you call that? Intro.
Man, shit, that's what it's called, damn. Man, what's wrong with you, man? Jeez. I'm just kidding, Chuck. Take it away. No. Don't take it away, Mike.
Gee, man. Hey, what's up? Yeah, no, I did. Has anybody heard about these things? Call them cloud walkers. Gotta check them out if you haven't. They are on our website on namysterypodcast.podbean.com. Pretty cool looking. Now, you know what I've heard more and more about these well, there's a lot actually. Skinwalkers become a gigantic, a huge, well, I don't even know what you call them. I know what you call them. A huge topic is what they're not, what I'm trying to think of the word as being. No. Yeah, no. They're, these skinwalkers. Now, the thing about skinwalkers with me is, here's the deal with me about skinwalkers. Isn't there a show about isn't there a show about skinwalkers? That's why I don't know if I take them. Not that I don't take them seriously. You know what? That's not okay. I'm sorry. That's not the proper the way of the description there. No, that's not it. Not at all. What was I gonna say? It's did it? Rejoin? Did it rejoin? I think it did. sorry, having mad difficulties with that. Yeah, that really sucks too, man. Yeah, I gotta fix that. Yeah. We're having bad problems. Like, I'm gonna have to do this quick, probably. Anyway. What's up, guys? How goes it? So. Like I said, we're getting more and more of these stories about skinwalkers. You know? And it's creepy. Their guy was creepy, dude. I'm trying this thing. I don't know if everybody's heard of them. But in this 10 Spooky Legends encrypted at Taunt, California. Now this, and the reason I bring this up, is because I've heard more and more about these, not skinwalkers, I apologize, these, night crawlers. Now, originally they were Fresno night crawlers. Now it's getting more and more where this oh shoot, different name to these. Hang on, this is always too loud, I know it. Alright. They're very good. Hated that so much. So lore plays a powerful role in urban and rural life. That's in California, you know. I mean anywhere. It can bring communities together, serving as a unique shared experience. When it becomes a tourism draw, it can also bring in revenue for people. I mean, that's Bigfoot, Loch Ness, a bunch of those. You know what I'm saying? Now consider the legend of Bigfoot, a bipedal ape-like creature said to roam the forests of the Pacific Northwest and, well, all over. Thousands of Bigfoot hunters flock to the region each year in hopes of finding him. They rent cars, book hotels. They buy Bigfoot merchandise. They open podcasts. All of it pouring in money. Well, I don't know what that's. I don't think anyway. But we are. Check out our website though, because we're putting in a crowdfunding thing because we're going to start doing where they're having these sightings. And me and Lincoln want to go and camp out. I would need help. We would need help. But man, we would do live podcasts and everything. We're opening up a on this crowdfunding page. It's on my website. Check it out. Me and Lincoln are going to go to these places where these sightings are and camp out and just hang out until we get these on our own videos. You know what I'm saying? So you guys check this out. Get on there and check this out because it's going to be super cool. But anyway, I'll get into it in a minute. But consider the legend of Bigfoot. Like everything, Bigfoot's one of the best known cryptid by far. But there are many other legends and monsters that enrich the Golden State in honor of Halloween 2023 and others. Here are 10 spooky legends that they speak of. The Lemurians of Mount Shasta. Is that how you say it, right? Lemurians? This 124-year-old legend involves purported descendants of an ancient civilization. They are said to inhabit an elaborate tunnel system beneath Mount Shasta and occasionally surface wandering in white robes. Now, is that the same thing as like those night crawlers? You know what I'm talking about? The Lemurians are just one of many legends that circulate around this breathtaking and almost mystical region. Now, Mount Shasta everything is always said to be popping up. And me and Lincoln are going to go, we're going to go camping at Mount Shasta. Like, we are going to Mount Shasta, aren't we, Link? Yes, we are. I mean, every year there's tens of thousands of people that visit Mount Shasta on spiritual and religious journeys. And me and Lincoln are so going. Lemurians are just one of the many legends that circulate around the breathtaking and almost mystical region of Mount Shasta. There's another. Have you guys heard of the Dark Watchers of the Santa Lucia Mountains? Man, me and Lincoln are going camping a lot. Sightings of Los Vigilantes Oscuros, or the Dark Watchers, stretch back about 300 years. The mysterious figures are even featured in John Steinbeck's short story Flight. If you haven't checked it out. The Dark Watchers are said to stalk travelers in the Santa Lucia Mountains of Big Sur. They described as 7 to 10 feet tall, shadowy, and typically clad in dark cloaks and hats. Heard about these before. Tahoe Tessie is Scotland has the Loch Ness Monster. Canada has Ogopogo. And the Lake Tahoe has Tahoe Tessie, who's described as a 30 to 60 foot lake monster who dwells in deep underwater caves. Now, don't you think that that's more of an underwater cave channeling system from one body of water maybe to another or something? I mean, that's initially kind of what they say with the about Loch Ness Monster, isn't it? Those who have seen Tahoe Tessie believe she's either a prehistoric animal or an undiscovered species. Skeptics say she's likely a large sturgeon that has been misidentified and at times exaggerated. Well, they say now that I read this thing that Loch Ness Monster is they think it's a giant eel. I'm like dead serious about it. Now, speaking of the Fresno Nightcrawlers, the legend of the Fresno Nightcrawler is fairly new, but it began around 2007 when a resident captured a video of two creatures walking along his front yard. 4 years later, the same beings were captured on video in Yosemite. And those are those things that look like they look like a pair of pants. And they walk. That's exactly what they look like. They're weird, but there's new footage of these. We're putting them up on our website, namysterypodcast.podbean.com. You have to put HTTPS. // Yeah. The Nightcrawler is almost cartoonish in appearance. That's what we made our shirt today. There's these Nightcrawler. Yeah. God, it's going to be done soon. It literally looks like a pair of wide-leg pants with no torso attached, stumbling around like a drunk college student. Some people think the Nightcrawler is an extraterrestrial. Others think it's a person, an animal, or just a hoax. I don't think it's I don't. Have you heard of the haunting at the Niles Hotel? This is a California thing. This is the only ghost haunting on our list. What sets it apart is that one of the most credible witnesses happens to have been a Modoc County supervisor. Elizabeth Cavasso was working on the third floor of a Niles Hotel in Atlaris when a figure suddenly appeared in front of her. Right in front of her face was a woman. Cavasso's husband told the Los Angeles Times. It was brief, and she was gone. Like that. Many other guests and hotel staff claim to have seen the same apparition. Believers say it's the spirits of a prostitute who died in the hotel many years ago. Tourists come to the Niles from all around to catch a glimpse of her. Well, another California thing of Joshua Tree skinwalkers. Wait, the skinwalkers are becoming more and more of a, yes they are. And no one knows the story of Joshua Tree skinwalkers better than the indigenous inhabitants of the Mojave Desert. They've been seeing these shapeshifter witches for centuries, apparently. These can cast spells and imitate your loved one, or well, as the mythology goes. But isn't there there's a show about skinwalkers, and that's what gets Skinwalker Ranch, or is it a show? Skinwalkers are having a bit of a moment on TikTok. See the videos posted by Skinwalkers. They're going to be on our website as well. Check them out. But there are a lot of them that are on on TikTok. Death Valley underground giant. Uninhabitable places are ripe for love, and Death Valley is no exception. Beneath the scorching sand and rock lies an underground city of catacombs, according to legend. The tombs are allegedly filled with mummified remains belonging to an ancient race of human beings who averaged over 8 feet tall. Is heard of. The Yucca Man is another one. Yucca Man is essentially the desert's own, well, Bigfoot, or the desert's answer to Bigfoot. This large bipedal creature was reportedly first sighted in 29 Palms back in 1971. Since then, there have been numerous sightings reported in Joshua Tree, the Antelope Valley, Sierra Nevada Mountains, and Warner's Ranch in San Diego County. Borrego Sandman. The Borrego Sandman. Borrego. If Bigfoot and Yucca Man had a family reunion, the Borrego Sandman would probably be there. He's very similar to the bipedal ape witnessed up north and in the Mojave. But this dude is a little lighter with a more humanoid face. And his hangout is the Anza-Borrego Desert. Never been there, but I'm going. Me and Lincoln are going. If we could, I need help getting these places, but of course the Chupacabra comes up on our list because California is that's a big place for it. It's right on the, pretty much. Chupacabra sightings span the Latin world and the southwestern United States. The famed creature, whose name means goat sucker, is reportedly responsible for many unexplained livestock deaths. The Chupacabra is usually described as short, 3 to 4 feet tall, and bipedal with red eyes. Some Chupacabra sightings have been identified as coyotes with mange. Read that before, but I don't think that's the case. Chupacabra sightings. Now, there was a misunderstanding of that alien in a Chupacabra, though. Or maybe it's the same thing. Chupacabra sightings first began in Puerto Rico. They have occurred in numerous California cities, including Chico, Fontana, Poway, Paris, Redlands, Riverside, and Santa Ana. Well, everybody, that's a fun list. I like that. Yeah. Well, just have you heard there's this Cryptids of Indiana, where to find them now in Lincoln? Have you ever seen something you can't explain? Felt like you weren't alone while walking in the woods. Heard a sound unlike anything beast or man. Cryptids are animals or creatures obviously caught somewhere between folklore and fact, secretive and mysterious beings whose existence have not been proven, but whose continued sightings and devoted believers make it impossible to completely count them out. Bigfoot, the Mothman, the Loch Ness Monster, of course, as we know, tales of unexplainable creatures have permeated into every patch of soil humanity has ever stood on. Hidden in the woods and swamps of Indiana live a host of Hoosier tales about creatures both bizarre and frightening. Now, these are clippings from a newspaper. Here are but a few of the cryptids said to be haunting the shadowy corners of the Hoosier state, watching and hiding, waiting to be discovered. Will it be by you, my friend? I think we're going to go find out. That's a. I've got this picture of a newspaper. Now, on September 5th of 1891, at 2 a.m. in the morning, two icemen looked into the dark sky above Crawfordsville, and saw a horrible apparition that filled them with dread. Flying across the sky, moving in a way that defied all logic, was a white, shapeless specter said to be 18 feet tall and 8 feet wide, which resembled a great white shroud with no body or no head. Just a great flaming eye. That sounds like. Witnesses said the strange, awe-inspiring creature flapped like a flag in the wind and swept slowly and majestically in the sky. The Icemen watched the specter hover hundreds of feet up into the sky until nearly 3 a.m. when they at last retreated, got out of there. The men later told the newspaper that come tomorrow they'd be carrying a Springfield rifle to the ice barn, and if the apparition again comes flapping around, they will drill a hole in them and with an ounce of cold lead. The pastor of the First Methodist Church also claimed to have seen the specter while retrieving water from the well. The pastor told the newspaper that he woke his wife, and together they gawked at the apparition. Swam through the air in a withering, twisting manner similar to the glide of some serpent. There's new videos of these, too. I've seen that. Now, there's a Lake Manitou serpent. Legend says that the Potawatomi dared not go on the still waters of Lake Manitou, located in or near Rochester. The natives call it Lake Manitou, or the Devil's Lake, and believed an evil spirit lived within the crystal waters and dared not fish, bathe, or even canoe up on the water's surface. Stories told in the 1830s claim the lake to be near bottomless. That line's 40 fathoms long were sunk into the lake in attempts to measure the murky depth, but no end was found. That quoted. But deep though the lake was fabled to be, it was not empty. In 1838, the Logan Sport Telegraph reported that two men claimed to have spotted a monster. 60 feet long, looked like a huge snake. A blacksmith also spotted the great serpent that lived beneath the mirrored surface of the lake. He said the beast had a head like that of a horse. Said that there were large yellow spots on the creature's gray-black skin. The monster was given the name Meshikawabak by the natives, which translate to Great Serpent. Local legends over the decades also gave the lake monster another name of the Devil's Lake Monster. Now, Pukwudgies is something I've heard of. That's something have you ever hiked through the forest, unable to shake the feeling that something was watching you? That no matter how hard you looked, something was there, hiding just out of sight. Indigenous people told tales of small creatures called Pukwudgies, or Pukwudgie, who lived in the forests of Indiana. These mischievous, secretive, and diminutive people are said to be goblin-like and stand no taller than 3 feet tall. At Mount State Park in Anderson, some claim to have encountered these curious, yet mostly harmless folk. In 1927, an amateur archaeologist claimed to have spotted a little man with dull blonde hair that covered his head like a helmet. Another Anderson woman also told a tale of her own encounter with the Pukwudgies, saying she recalled praying along in this park as a child with a group of little curious people approached her. She said like creatures spoke in high-pitched voices in a language she could not understand. Most native legends say Pukwudgies are are good-natured, but do not enjoy playing tricks on people. So next time you're in the forest and an acorn drops on your head, listen closely to hear if there's any laughter behind it. The Pike County Monster. I never actually saw the thing myself, but I heard it scream. It sounded like nothing I'd ever heard before, kind of like a woman screaming. And later, when I went out for her water, I seen where it had been, out of the pond drinking, left big prints in the mud, unquote. In the early 1970s, several reports were made about a figure said to be 12 feet tall and half man, half ape, who left footprints twice the size of any human living. Any living human. Who's dyslexic? A 93-year-old Petersburg resident shared his encounter with the creature to an Indiana University student in 1973. The student reported speaking of several folks in Pike County who shared similar stories of a large, hairy creature who came and went over the years. Some said the creature had glowing eyes and would send hounds into barking fit. Courier and Press reported a group of armed teenagers who went in search of the monster, but even had they found it, it likely would have been eluded them. According to an official report made by Indiana State Police in 1970, locals claimed the 10-foot tall, hair-covered creature could reach speeds of up to 60 miles per hour. That's pretty fast on your feet, dude. Oh, I'm just saying. That is. I mean, have you ever heard of the Beast of Busco? This might be a new one for me. Small town of Kersbow, Indiana, made national headlines after reports spread far and wide of a monstrous 500-pound snapping turtle living in the waters of Lake Folk. A turtle as big as a car. Well, I think there's more than just one of those. I mean, you know what I mean. Reporters and lookies loose descended on Churubusco in search of a legendary turtle. Cars jamming up city streets and planes flying overhead. Divers dredged through the muck of Lake Folk, and lines, hooks, and nets tried to vein the snare to the beast. What that? Reporters, yeah, I did read that right. Gail Harris, who owned Lake Folk, is said to have become so obsessed with catching the beast that he even went as far as attempting to drain the lake. People own lakes? That sounds weird to me. While the fabled beast was bestowed the name the Beast of Busco, the townfolk christened the creature with another more friendly moniker, Oscar. Oh, named it Oscar. Take a trip to Churubusco now, and Oscar isn't hard to find. He's on signs that greet visitors who drive into town, and is the star of the annual Turtle Days Summer Festival. Oh, well. You ever heard of the Cable Line Monster? That's a new one for me. There once was a tree south of Elkhart that had a face like that of a man. Only whatever dwelled in this tree was not beast or man, nor man. Whether it be monster or a ghost, the locals cannot say, but the tale they do tell is one of an unsettling entity that shakes and rattles passing cars, of a sight so frightful it causes passing drivers to crash their cars. In more haunted Hoosier Trails folklore from Indiana's spookiest places, author Wandu Lou Willis spins a spine-chilling tale of a tree haunted by a spirit. Willis says the tree once sat near Jamestown, just southwest of Elkhart, but was cut down after the tree became deceased. In one version of the tale, drivers traveling down Cable Line Road, County Road 26, would sometimes see a dismembered head floating above the road in search of its body, which was captured by the tree after a deadly crash. In another version, the monster on Cable Line Road would pop out and spook passenger drivers, so they'd crash. Legends tell of the drivers a tree wearer's face was forever imprinted into the bark of the tree, sometimes visible in the passing headlights of future travelers who dared drive down Cable Line Road on moonless night. Pretty creepy. Guys, you gotta take a short break. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back with the Mill Race Monster. Go anywhere. I'll be right back, my friends.
First, offering hints about the vast cosmos that lies beyond our current observational capabilities. One of the key clues from the early universe is the uniformity of the CMB across the sky. This surprising uniformity suggests that different regions of the universe, even those that are not causally connected, meaning light has not had time to travel between them since the Big Bang, have similar temperatures. This observation has led to the inflation theory, which posits that the universe underwent a rapid expansion shortly after its birth, smoothing out any initial irregularities. Inflation implies that the regions beyond our observable universe were once connected.
This is an email from. Uh, yeah. No, he put that on the back end. Yeah. My name is Joe. I'm sorry. Emails, stories, stories from. Well, most of them are hikers, or campers as well. Not all of them, though. Not all of them. I just put them all out there. This is a story from Jody. My name is Jody. I grew up with my two parents in a rundown trailer park. Rundown trailer park. I'm sorry, in Savannah, Georgia. Being the only child with alcoholic parents was tough. I remember spending most of my days running around the trailer park with neighborhood kids until dark, staying out of the house for as long as possible. Surrounding the park was a forest bordered by a rusty fence to keep trailer residents off the private property. Therefore, the local kids and I never ventured there. We'd play hopscotch, wiffle ball, kickball, or anything that we could with the small field and the roads that we had. One day after school, a bunch of us kids gathered in the community field for a kickball game. It was like any other day in the park until the most extraordinary thing happened to me. I was in the outfield when Maxwell, perhaps the most athletic kid at the park, kicked the ball over the fence and into the bordering forest. Since I was closest to the fence, I climbed it without thinking twice, looking around for the ball. Oddly, it was nowhere to be found. A red kickball would stand out in the woods, but was nowhere in sight. I walked up the bank a little, assuming it might have landed further away than I expected. As I reached the bank's peak, I was greeted by the most horrifying thing I could have ever imagined. A black dog with a rabbit's head stood about 10 feet away, staring at me. We had a stagnant moment of observing each other. The rabbit's head was proportional in the size of the large dog's body. Golden eyes stared back into mine. I hear another kid running up behind me to ask what's taking so long, but I can't take my eyes off this creature. He approaches me, puts his hands on my shoulder and asks, what are you doing? Where's the ball? Then turns to see what I'm looking at. Now, there are two of us just standing there, witnessing what looks like a dog from hell. After what I felt like a lifetime of anticipation, the creature finally moves. It spun its back toward us, then trotted off, hopping similarly to a rabbit. Once it was out of sight, the boy and I exchanged a look, then ran down the bank and jumped the fence as fast as we could. Once we were back inside the trailer park, we told everyone waiting for us what we had seen. Unsurprisingly, nobody believed us, and a few kids even hopped over the fence to go see for themselves, but claimed we were liars upon returning. Shaken up, the boy and I decided to be alone. We knew there was no chance of anyone believing us, and needed time to let what we'd seen resonate, rather than continuously getting picked on by other kids. The following day after school, the boy who bears witness with me, Robbie, and I spent a decent amount of time doing research at the public library. Of course, we didn't find anything or any kind of information on such a thing. As I grew up, the only explanation that made sense was that the private property bordering the trailer park holds a science lab where they experiment with mixing different animals, like a Frankenstein project or something. Of course, I can only assume this since there's no public information on the land. Well, Jody, I'm gonna say, man, I'm telling you, they're out there. They are out there, my friend. This one. Thank you for this opportunity, Tom and Autumn. It is remarkable how you two bring light to such an overseen phenomenon. Many people experience strange things they never share for fearing of not being believed. Thank you for having this on your show. I'm going to share with you something I haven't told anyone, not even my husband, out of that common fear of not being believed. The occurrence happened when I was a young girl in foster care. It was my third temporary home in the first year of being in the system. My high turnover rate was due to my inability to behave as a child. I was uncontrollably angry due to all the trauma my biological parents had caused me since I was old enough to retain memories. However, my third home did not end because of my wrongdoings. I was 11 years old and I was rehomed to the Johnson family. That isn't their surname, but we'll just use it for privacy concerns. The Johnson family who took me in was a couple in their late 50s whose children had already moved out, started their lives as adults. Therefore, it was just us three residing in the middle of the woods outside a small village called Arrow Rock, Missouri. I grew up in a small city nearby, and since my parents severely neglected me, I never got to experience the great outdoors. There were no camping trips, hikes, fishing adventures, etc. So when I arrived at my new home in Arrow Rock, I was marginally creeped out. I felt it was the perfect setting for a horror movie. Nobody was around. The Johnsons were a loving couple. They kept me well fed, helped me with the schoolwork, and even taught me how to fish. Everything was going fantastic. And at one point, I even hoped to be my forever home. But I was wrong. One night, a week after moving in, I, for some reason, was struggling to stay asleep. I woke up, rolled over to get more comfortable, turning toward my bedroom door. After repositioning myself, I got a weird sensation of being watched. I opened my eyes to see Miss Johnson in her nightgown standing in my bedroom doorway. I only caught a glimpse of her before she scurried down the hallway in a panic. Frightened, I ran to the door and locked it before continuing the night, lying awake too disturbed to rest. I confronted her over breakfast the following day, asking why she was watching me while I was asleep. Mr. Johnson remained quiet, not bothering to chime in or inquire about his wife's behavior, which I found very odd. She denied watching me and said it must have been a dream, but after I told her I wasn't dreaming, she raised her voice and told me to just drop it. I was in complete awe that they could normalize such bizarre behavior. After that, I started to distance myself from them and lock my bedroom door every night. A few days later, I was awoken by a shining bright light, by a slow creaking sound at an ungodly hour in the night. When I opened my eyes from the disturbance, I saw her again. Her white nightgown illuminated in the dark hallway, standing in the narrow opening of the cracked door. I instantly launched forward in bed and screamed, and she scurried away like before, her footsteps shaking the old house as she ran. Terrified, I hesitated to get up and lock the door again. I remembered thinking, did this woman unlock my door and watch me sleep? Fear overcame me, and I could not get out of bed. I hid under my blankets for the rest of the night, tucked in the corner against the wall. The morning rolled around, and I decided not to confront Miss Johnson as I did the first time. Instead, I talked to her husband about it in private. I told him I wasn't comfortable sleeping here anymore, and that maybe finding a new home would be better. He told me not to worry, that she sleepwalks from time to time, but it's nothing serious. She would never harm me. When I mentioned how she unlocked my door, he offered to change the lock, make me feel more comfortable. So I decided to give it another chance. That night, I was terrified to fall asleep. The house is always so dark due to the lack of street lights for the neighboring buildings. Quiet, too. It was always eerily quiet. I tried staying up all night out of fear that Miss Johnson would come into my room while I was asleep, since the lock was not yet changed. I was awake until I could hear the birds chirp at sunrise. It was clearly dawn when I finally drifted to sleep at ease. It'll be light soon, and Miss Johnson didn't attempt to break in throughout the night. Little did I know I wouldn't be asleep for long. I was woken by half an hour later, the sound of heavy breathing. It was Miss Johnson, wide-eyed at the end of my bed, staring at me. I sat up and asked her what she was doing. She didn't respond. Instead, she slowly got on her hands and knees and started to crawl up my bed while holding intimidating eye contact. I jumped out of bed. She followed behind, chasing me down the stairs. After running out the front door and across the lawn, I looked back to see. But she was no longer chasing me. She stayed in the doorway, crouched down and hunched over, just watching me, her eyes wide as possible. I continued running for about half a mile, then slowed down to a fast walk. I didn't stop until I reached the police station. It took a few hours. I told the officers I needed to be rehomed. To this day, the Johnson family claims it was just sleepwalking, but I find it odd that she would only harass me while I was asleep. Never tried to open my door or even approach my bedroom on the nights that I stayed awake. It's as if she somehow knew when I was awake and asleep, and she'd creep her way in like clockwork. Her demonic gaze, hunched back, and lack of words was too haunting to write off as sleepwalking in my book. This day, I've never told anyone about my experience in that home because it makes me uncomfortable. And I know nobody would believe the extent of how weird it was. You would have had to see it for yourself. I no longer feel comfortable sleeping in rooms that don't have locks. Even if there are locks, I don't feel secure unless they're impossible to pick from the outside. Johnson still appears in my dreams from time to time, but not as often as she once did. I've thought about bring kids. The stories that I hear about some of their homes that they have in, and I'm like, man, I would never give a kid a horrible place to stay. And if I can give at least one or two kids a comfortable place, at least I would give anybody. At least where they didn't have to feel frightened. If I could at least do it. All right. All right. I'm going to read. This is real long. Real long. All right. So, get ready. Delaware was one of the last places I would have expected to encounter a cryptid, especially one so rare. The experience taught me that we're likely never as alone as we think. In 2002, I struggled through the most awkward time of my life. I was 29 years old, I'd recently separated from my wife, who I had dated since I was 20, and lost my job due to the company needing to scale back. Losing my career was perhaps the most devastating of all because I had imagined I had become indispensable to that employee or that employer. Sorry. Aside from the founders, I had worked there longer than anyone else and knew the ropes inside and out. Understand completely. Anyhow, it got to the point where it felt like I had hit rock bottom and I knew I was needing to do something to help climb my way out where there was no going back. I hate to admit it, but I was pretty close to that point of no return. If you know what I mean, I do know what you mean. Let's just say I considered every option available. One of the first things I decided to do was move to a much more affordable area. I had been living in Boston, a place where life was anything but cheap. It became apparent that temporarily living in a quieter, less popular area might do me some good. It was one of those periods that I think most people go through at some point. I knew I needed to implement change into my routine, but wasn't sure how to go about it, or other than relocate. It seemed like the only logical strategy that might trigger other unforeseen but positive changes. I felt so dang lost. I ended up deciding on a small town known as Arden. Well, it's more like a village than a town, which is a big part of why I chose it. It was a super charming place and seemed like a perfect place to temporarily move to so that I could reset my troubled mind. It's ranked as one of the safest places in the state, which is ironic considering went through what I went through while living there. I found the typical architecture of the village to have so much charm that I couldn't resist moving there almost as soon as I saw it for the first time. But since I prepared to lose substantial money to my divorce, I wanted to find something extremely affordable. After having some trouble finding something in my intended price range, I met a woman at a cafe who told me her grandmother was looking for a renter for her house since she had recently moved to a nursing home. She didn't want to sell it because she insisted it remained in the family. But since nobody in her family wanted to pay the costly maintenance and taxes that came with it, she tried to find a temporary tenant to look after the place. I almost couldn't believe how perfect the timing seemed. It felt meant to be. Those feelings of gratitude increased once I pulled up the property. It was gorgeous, but it did need some upkeep. Fortunately, the woman's grandmother offered me an unbeatable rate in exchange for taking care of a simple task like mowing the lawn, replacing light bulbs, etc. Trust me when I say it was a no-brainer of a deal. I would have been a fool to consider rejecting the offer, so I thought. Everything at the rental property started nicely. Although I was still enduring a whirlwind of emotions, I at least felt like I had some room to breathe. The house sat on about 4.5 acres, so I spent a lot of time strolling the yard, checking for things that might require maintenance. I didn't want only to do the minimum that the owner required. I wanted to come up with the other project that would lead to outcomes we'd both appreciate. One of the first things I thought of was build a few hummingbird feeders. The property looked like one of those one that would attract those little guys. The property looked like one that would attract those little guys. Oh, hummingbird. I had gone days without seeing a single one of them. It immediately became evident how much moving that place helped distract me from all the recent ongoing turmoil. There were times throughout the day when I still had to acknowledge all the negativity. I cannot talk. But moving to Arden seemed to equip me to deal with it in a clear head. I didn't even realize how badly I needed that until my perception were less clouded. Everything felt like it was started right back on track. But one night, a little over a week had I moved in, something really unexplained occurred. I woke up around 2 to relieve myself and stepped on something sharp as I exited the bathroom. Winching from the pain, I flipped on the light to get a better look at the floor and found a nail in the middle of the doorway. I can't express how surprised I was by seeing this object there. I may have been guilty of many things during that time in my life, but being messy wasn't one of them. I've always taken pride in having an extremely organized living space, and my new rental property was no exception. Even if I had missed the object lying on the floor, what are the chances of it sat upward to puncture my skin? To say I was baffled by the whole thing was putting it very lightly. Fortunately, I had only stepped on the item with only one of my smaller toes, otherwise it could have easily pierced in my entire foot. I remember having a bad feeling as I cleaned the wound and bandaged my toe. I felt like someone was watching me inside the house. For peace of mind, I turned on every light inside the house and double-checked I had locked all the doors. Everything was secured and I found no trace of anyone entering our home. I then wondered if someone from the family who had a spare key didn't like that I was living there. Is it possible that one of the family members snuck inside the middle of the night and planted a sharp object for me to step on? I knew that was such an absurd thing to think, but if you were as much as a clean freak as I was, you would understand why I would start thinking of potentialities like that. I knew I wouldn't have left that nail there. I just knew it, especially a wreck like that. I couldn't think of any other possibility. But by morning, I felt significantly better and wrote the incident off much easier than during the previous night. Since I had thrown the nail in the trash, I tried to look at it like it was nothing more than a strange dream. Of course, I was still confused, but I didn't really want to spend time dwelling on something that I likely wouldn't get to the bottom of. After getting ready to go to the hardware store, I walked outside and found several bird skeletons on the way to my car. 4 were laid out in a perfect line, each around half a foot apart. What the hell, I gasped. In addition to them laying in an oddly row, every feather and ounce of meat had been picked clean. It made it difficult to believe that it was an act of a typical woodland predator. This was performed by someone or something intending to intimidate me. I began to wonder if there was some teenager in the family I didn't know about, looking to make me feel uncomfortably or overwhelmed so they could get a good laugh or something. Truthfully, that's what I wanted to believe. For every other potentiality I could think of felt far more threatening. Whatever was going on, it felt evident that someone was acting maliciously toward me. But why? Aside from the conflict with my wife, I didn't have any problems with anyone. But why would anyone want to target me? I don't know how long I stood there examining the bird skeletons, but I was unsure how to proceed. I wondered if I should dispose of the bones by tossing them beyond the tree line or just leave them there to be. Little part of me felt inclined to disregard the recent oddities, or I didn't want to make it look like I was intimidated in case someone was watching. Although I got a great deal, I paid a significant sum of money up front to negotiate the best possible price. I didn't know whether getting a refund would be more difficult if I decided to break the lease. Eventually, I continued toward my car without touching the skeletons and headed for the hardware store, wanting to carry on with my day. When I returned a few hours later, the remains had vanished. Still, I tried not to think too hard about it, assuming that a scavenger maybe had taken them elsewhere. I doubt it. Later that afternoon, I was preparing to cut the grass when I heard footsteps in the nearby woodline. It seemed like someone was tiptoeing atop fallen leaves, but the dense vegetation obstructed my view of them. "Who's there?" I called out. There was no response. "I know you put that nail in the house last night, and I laid the bird skeletons on the ground. You better stop those games, unless you want the police to get involved." I wasn't sure that there was actually someone walking around out there while I said all that, but if there was, I wanted them to know I was aware that I wouldn't take kindly to more antics. But again, no one replied to me, so the sounds of the footsteps stopped, leading me to suspect that if there was someone behind the tree line, they had found a perfect spot to watch my every move. I didn't want to make it look like I was intimidated by anyone, for I felt I cannot, for I felt that would encourage them to keep messing with me around. But I also didn't think it was a great idea to stick around out there with someone potentially watching me while I couldn't see them. God, I cannot talk correctly. Sorry. So I decided to continue with whatever I was doing for a bit longer, attempting to appear unconcerned. Eventually, I headed back toward the house, and that was when I saw the set of eyes staring at me from inside. They appeared closer together and low to the ground, making me assume it was a teenager that had been playing pranks on me. Without further hesitation, I rushed inside, knowing I needed to take charge if I ever wanted this crap to end, hoping I'd be able to acquire the phone number of the kids' parents and ensure they were grounded by some punishment or some kind of form. To make a long story short, I had dealt with a group of disrespectful teenagers in the past, so I had assumed this was no different. After practically kicking the door down, I instantly felt the strangest sensation to date. My muscles went completely still after making it more than 3 or 4 feet inside the house. Not only did I freeze up, but I quickly started to get an awful cramp-like sensation in my right hamstring, causing me to wince. I wanted to grab it or change my position so badly, but it was no use. I was paralyzed. I couldn't believe my eyes when the strangest of beings slowly hobbled onto the foyer from around the corner. I could tell it was a male, but I couldn't tell what it was. It wasn't a human, but it walked a lot like one that had been human-like expressions. Whatever it was, it got closer and closer until it was inches away. Every ounce of me wanted to escape the intruder, but I couldn't even utter a word. The only thing I could move slightly was my eyes, and they had trouble matching the careful pace of the strange creature's movement. Its space reminded me of how some movies depicted elves, only much creepier and more sinister. I couldn't believe any of it was really happening. As the thing circled me, I observed its spiky back out of my peripheral vision. It reminded me of what you would see on a hedgehog or a porcupine. Even though I couldn't look at what it with complete focus, I was sure it was an extension of its torso and not part of some outfit. The short intruder must have circled me at least 4 or 5 times, occasionally muttering things that didn't make sense to me. It easily could have been a different language, but I was spoken to softly to discern. I was under the impression that it was analyzing me and deciding what to do with me. Whatever was going on, it felt apparent that this thing didn't appreciate my presence. It was no friend, that's for sure. There was a point when the intruder got closer behind me and started sniffing my lower back. The sounds of that made it seem much wilder and feral. I would say that solidified the notion that this was no human I was dealing with. It was some rare creature. It was incredibly aggravating how I couldn't utter a single word while I wanted to tell the creature to get away from me and possibly do something to intimidate it. I can't imagine a more frightening scenario than being entirely at the mercy of some creepy entity I've never seen or heard of before. I would have preferred to be in front of a hungry grizzly bear and have governance over my muscles than be with this strange intruder, unable to move or speak. I can't imagine another scenario where I would feel as vulnerable as I did during this event. It was horrifying. Cannot talk right. Since I knew nothing about the entity, I had no way of knowing whether it was doing something to me at the moment, or if there might have been something on the nail that I stepped on, which was slow to activate. Either way, I worried that, even if I survived this encounter, I would be paralyzed for the remainder of my days. Feeling panicked and frightened while unable to defend myself or yourself leads to a whole other excruciating experience. I felt like I was nearing a peak of internal insanity when I suddenly could move again. My body sprung forward uncontrollably after a long period of desperation to escape the intruder, and I fell to the floor face first. I immediately rolled over to my back, expecting that the intruder had accidentally allowed me to regain control and was likely about to attack. However, nothing was there. I appeared alone in the foyer. With my heart palpitating, I rose to my feet, rapidly checking every direction, still expecting the intruder to ambush me. But soon, the house and interior began to feel calm, which quickly helped me to feel slightly more relaxed, regardless of the unexplainable event I had just suffered. When it became evident that the coast was clear and that mysterious menace, I found myself confused about what to do. Honestly, how was anyone supposed to proceed with their day after something like that? Let alone the foreseeable future. This is my new house. After sneaking into the kitchen and grabbing a giant butcher knife in sight, I carefully searched every room in the house. Since I hadn't heard any doors open or close following the encounter, I was fully prepared for the intruder to be hiding in one of the rooms or closet. But I found nothing. Not only had I not located the mysterious creature, but I also found no trace of it. There were no nails, bird bones, or other creepy objects in the area I might occupy throughout the day. Once I began to feel more secure, I took the portable landline telephone outside with me. I wanted to call the family member who had handled the lease agreement, but he seemed like a bit of a hothead, and I felt he would deny my story even if I knew something about it. After careful thought, I decided to drive to the coffee shop, where I met the barista who referred me to the rental property in the first place. She came off to me like she would be far more understanding during difficult conversations, and I felt she would be the best candidate for not immediately dismissing me as a crazy. Even if she thought it, she would probably keep it to herself, I hoped. Now, don't go anywhere, because I will be right back. I will. I apologize, but I will be right back. Nobody. Bye-bye. This is Noahville Mystery Podcast. These are great stories. I like these. I will be right back. Don't go anywhere, my friends.
The known universe, with its myriad forms from spiral to elliptical, lenticular to irregular, already presents a vast catalogue of galactic structures. Yet, the potential for undiscovered types of galaxies that could exist in the universe's most distant or hidden regions is a topic ripe for speculation and wonder. One potential category could be ultramassive galaxies, far exceeding the size and mass of any galaxies observed thus far. These hypothetical behemoths would dwarf even the most massive galaxies we know, containing trillions of stars and spanning hundreds of thousands of light-years across. Their formation and evolution would challenge our understanding of cosmic structure and the limits of galaxy formation. Another speculative type could be dark galaxies, composed almost entirely of dark matter with very few, if any, stars. These galaxies would be nearly invisible to our current detection methods, which rely heavily on the light emitted by stars. Dark galaxies could provide critical insights into the nature of dark matter and the role it plays in the structure and dynamics of the cosmos. Galaxies with unconventional forms, resulting from unique or extreme conditions, might also exist. These could include galaxies with highly irregular shapes, not fitting into our current classification schemes, or galaxies that have undergone unusual evolutionary paths due to their environment, such as intense gravitational interactions with neighboring galaxies or exposure to extreme radiation. Primordial galaxies from the very early universe, significantly different in composition and...
All right, I apologize. Well, I'm probably edit that one around. I will. Welcome back to Nova Bear Mystery Podcast. Sorry. I have to edit that. If I don't, nobody kill me. When I arrived at the coffee shop, I was disappointed not to see her behind the counter. I asked one of her other employees, and they informed me that she wasn't scheduled to work that day. However, I exited the cafe. I crossed paths with the individual I was looking for, and she even recognized me. She explained that one of her associates asked her to cover their shift at the last minute, and she agreed to them a favor in exchange for their help in the future. I wanted to ask her to walk with me so that I could explain my horrifying experience. However, I felt that might come off as a little creepy since she barely knew me. But we ended up grabbing a table and inside for a few minutes before she had to start working. Poor girl looked shocked by everything I told her. But then she mentioned that other family members had said they thought her grandmother's house was haunted. She didn't go into much detail, nor claim to have heard anything about the specific entity I encountered. Still, she admitted the property was known by her family and their close friends for strange occurrences. But she hadn't spent the night there since she was a small child, for whatever reason, so she hadn't personally really dealt with any of the phenomenon. One thing led to the next. Eventually, I spoke to the grandmother directly. I almost couldn't believe my ears when she apologized for my experience. I thought she would have said I had to have been imagining things, but she was very sympathetic. Her reaction made me feel two very distinct emotions. In one way, I felt reassured, given that I had confirmation I hadn't lost my mind. On the other hand, I didn't particularly appreciate having it confirmed as a reality. I think I would have preferred to discover that the encounter like that wasn't really even possible. Right? Although the older woman didn't seem to understand much about what approached me, she did have a name for it. She referred to him as Oscar, and I don't know if she gave him that name or if he introduced himself as that. Either way, it's incredibly creepy. The homeowner didn't seem too terrified of the creature. However, I did get the impression that she found it hard to deal with. It was like she knew he had a short temper. I want to know why anyone would rent their house out if they knew an entity like that came around frequently. That seems pretty irresponsible if you ask me. Fortunately, I got my money back, and I had other family members help me move my few heavy items out of there. I noted how nobody else wanted to talk about the subject, leaving me to wonder if they believed in it or if they just wanted to avoid the topic for some reason. It's all so mysterious. I was the one who had to search for an explanation, eventually learning of a cryptid referred to as the Pukwudgie. I had never heard of it before, but apparently there's an entire species of these things, and many unsettling historical events connected to it. Some articles stated that they might have been friendly toward humans once upon a time, but aren't anymore. I can't verify how much truth there is to everything about them on the internet, but I was pretty surprised by how informal and how much information is available to the public. There are a lot of opinions on the creatures that come off as a pretty fantastical, in my opinion, but I suppose I'm not in a place to be real critical, given what I went through in Arden. That encounter even made me question whether magic is real. According to people on the internet, it is. The Pukwudgies harnessed it like long ago. As crazy as all of it must sound, I'm not sure how else the creature could have disabled me at the will and let me go soon after. What did it want from me? And that's that is pretty crazy. Pukwudgies, man, I'm telling you. Just another topic. Well, you heard it all on No Avails Mystery Podcast. Hey, Rico, what's up, man? Sorry, I was just finishing that story. How's it going, Rico? You doing all right, brother? You guys have a wonderful day. Welcome to No Avail Mystery Podcast. I'm your host, Joey No Avail Shaddy. Join me tomorrow, my friend.